Anthony, thank you so much for coming on the Easy Prey podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
So, can you give myself and the audience a little bit of background about who you are, what you do, and what got you into the field?
Those are a lot of questions. Yeah, so I'm Anthony van der Meer. I'm Dutch. That's why it sounds a little bit weird. Um, I am an investigative journalist. I've been doing this for over 7 years. And I only focus on cybersecurity, cybercrime, and privacy. And besides that, I'm also an open source intelligence researcher. So I do a lot of work on Ukraine, for instance. I do that for one of the biggest news corporations in the Netherlands. And besides all of that, all the experience I gain from this other work, I use as a trainer. So I work as a visiting trainer for one of the biggest think tanks in the Netherlands, Klingendaal Institute. Um, yeah, so that's my background, or at least what I'm doing now. How I got into this, that's a long story. I studied film. I'm going to give you the short version. I studied film, and while I was studying, I I wanted to do fiction. That was my main interest. But during my studies, I was forced to do some documentary work as well, and I quite kind of liked it. I liked it a lot, especially the investigative version of just not knowing what you're going to get at the end of the production. Um, so because I wanted to study film, I wanted to do fiction. I also thought about studying psychology. So at the time, I could do a minor uh, psychology somewhere else. So I had to do like an exchange thing. But the art academy that I was on, they were too late with the apply with my form, so they didn't apply me. Uh, kind of Probably kind of manipulative because they got a lot more money if I stayed and did the minor on their own yeah, school, university. So I was forced to pick one of theirs. So there were only a couple of minor studies left, and one of them was hacking.
Hmm.
It was hacking not in the terms of computer hacking, but in a broader version. It was like the whole mindset.
Mhm.
So I would define it as I would define hacking as doing something different with a product than it's originally designed or intended for. So making a coffee machine or using a coffee machine to make alcohol, for instance, that's kind of a life hack.
Yeah.
But of course, hacking a webcam is also literally using a webcam in a way it's not intended to be used for. Um, so then things came together um, because my iPhone got stolen uh, during that time, and it got stolen in a real sneaky way. There was this, I think it was a pretty young girl. She came up to my table. I was sitting in Amsterdam having lunch with a friend in a cafe, and she came to our table, and she had this like a paper in front of her, which had text, but it wasn't Dutch, it wasn't English, it wasn't any real language, it was just made up words.
Mhm.
And she kept pointing at it, got tears in her eyes. She said, "Help, help," and pointed at that thing. So we were pretty confused, but at the same time, a little bit suspicious. So the whole time I was thinking, okay, I have to make sure I still have my wallet, to make sure I still have my bag. So she went away. Some waitress sent her away, and we were just chilling. And when we got a check, the waitress said, "Hey, sorry about that, the little incident. Do you still have everything?" I was like, "Yeah." Do you have your bag? Check. Do you have your wallet? Check. Do you have your phone? I was like,
Nope.
"Oh shit, where's my phone?" So what she actually did, she was holding the paper, but with her pinky, she was lifting my phone off the table while she was pointing at the paper. So the paper was covering my phone at the time, and that had a little that made me think because the way she stole it was really professional, really well trained. She was probably part of a pickpocketing gang. Those are really common in Amsterdam. So I started wondering what would happen to a phone once it gets stolen. Where will it end up?
Mhm.
Um, because there were a couple of TV shows and a couple of things I read about it, but those all ended with catching a thief, and not the whole thing behind after that.
Yeah.
The second part was that Find My iPhone was just introduced at the time. So we tracked the phone immediately. We saw the little dot move on the map, but once we got close to the dot, it went offline. She just took out the SIM card, and then of course you don't have an internet connection, so you can't follow your phone.
Yeah.
And the third thing was I was actually making notes on my phone, and the phone was unlocked on the table. So when my phone got stolen, she had access to everything on my phone, and that made me wonder if she could get to know me through my phone. She would read my texts or looked at through my photos. What would she think about me? Could she maybe paint like a little portrait of me? So I thought, okay, what if I turn this whole thing around? So I made a bait phone with the purpose of it getting stolen by one of those gangs. And it happened eventually. So I took an Android phone, tried to make it, infected with spyware, make it so that it, even if you reset the phone, the spyware would still be on there. It took a lot of time and effort because I was a filmmaker, not an IT specialist, of course. So I went through a lot of IT specialists, and they all said, no, that's impossible. Once the phone gets reset, factory reset, everything's gone. So then I went to the dark side, to the dark web, to hack forums, fora, and then I found out, it's possible. It's quite easy to do it once you know how. And that sparked my interest in that whole area. So the film I made, it's called Find My Phone, and it went viral at the time. I think in 2016 it went viral. Got news all over the world. And because I wanted to make the main point that I was trying to make in the film about privacy, I took every media opportunity I got to give interviews. So it grew and grew, and that gave me the opportunity to make more films. So that's how I started my career. Yeah.
And so what got you involved in kind of the OSINT community and just beyond talking about what happened to your phone?
Good question. So during the production of that first film, I did everything myself because I didn't have any budget. So I learned a lot by just doing it and by researching everything online. So that gave me a couple of new subjects to work on. I've made a film about remote access Trojans and how you can buy access to a random computer for 14 cents a piece. And also, so I got a little bit of hacking experience because I wanted to demonstrate how easy it is. Kind of a legal gray area, more blackish than gray, to be honest. Yep. Then I had a hacking experience, and I came up with a new concept of the concept of Bait, my latest TV show. And Bait is a show where I entrap myself and purposefully I fall victim to cyber criminals, for instance, phishing gangs or dating fraudsters, to find out how those guys operate. So what their exact process is, because every time you try to interview a victim, you don't really get a clear picture of what actually happened. You only get a picture of what they think happened.
Yeah.
I just become the perfect victim for instance, a dating fraudster, a romance scammer with a fake profile. Then figure out how they work, and also try to figure out, reverse engineer a way into their systems. So try to hack them eventually. I use a lot of open source research for that, because of the legality of this whole area. So it basically comes down to, if I don't have to hack, I won't hack. And if I'm going to do something slightly gray area ishy, I'll try to minimize the impact. So if I can just fish an email address, that's and it's enough to find out who the guy is behind the dating scammer. That will be enough. But sometimes you have to go further, and that gave me a lot of new skills.
I can imagine,
because I have to because I do all the things myself. What I do is I just research the subject, film that, film me while I'm researching it, and that becomes the film.
Mhm.
With a second layer most of the times about what it does to me, for instance.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, like, when you're investigating this, have you, in general, found that these people that you're becoming bait for are individuals, or is it more organized crime? That it's a gang or a larger organization?
It's almost always organized crime. That surprised me a little bit. So for the romance scammers, we entrapped about 7 persons, and I think 2 or 3 of them, they were just after Google Play cards or gift cards. So they didn't need any money laundering ring. But all the others, they had whole pretty sophisticated networks of money launderings. They call them pickers, and they're all based in the same area or at the same roots. They're all from uh, West Africa, so Togo, Ghana, Nigeria,
Hmm.
um, which made sense because they just have a little bit of an organization there, but also a youth culture thing. So they write films about what they're doing. They make music videos about it,
Oh,
and
wow.
they sell all their methods online in Yahoo Telegram channels, for instance, or on dark web forums. And so they talk in their own Nigerian language or with a really thick accent, uh, and they help each other out in that way. So there are a lot of
Interesting.
yeah, it's really interesting to also find out more about that. They even add voodoo rituals into this
Hmm.
whole scamming thing. Uh, Once or twice we had to do like a little spell and do like a blood bond thing where we had to show that we took blood out of our finger and said a spell. Um, and what they do on the other side is they have like this juju doctors, which are voodoo doctors that will help them. Uh, yeah, kind of. How would you say that? Like use religion to get a hold on you as
Hmm.
a victim. Of course, it doesn't work because they all thought I was a woman. So not a great voodoo doctor if they didn't even figure
Yeah.
out that. But yeah,
Do you think, is that just part of the scam of bringing a sense of religion into it, or is it something that they actually think is helping them?
yeah, they pay a lot of money to do that. There are a couple of videos online you can find on YouTube where they literally like are casting spells on their own laptops with voodoo doctors, and they have to give money to get more money out of the victims. So they give that to the voodoo doctors and get it in return. So I think it,
The scammer's getting scammed.
yeah, definitely, yeah, I would say so. But yeah, natural religions are really common still in that part of Africa.
Hmm.
So I think it's just a mix of normal cultural events and technology and all the jobs it can create, including the bad ones, like the criminal jobs. And it's those guys aren't in a good place, you know. They're one of the guys we caught. We manipulated him for months. Yeah, for over 3 months, we pretended to be the perfect victim, a lady, but we couldn't entrap him into our technical trick. So one of the things we did was we had like a fake banking app he needed to install. It was
Hmm.
it was really in the app store. It was pretty legit, but he just wouldn't download it. If he downloaded it, we would have gotten a picture of him or at least location.
Hmm.
But he didn't do it. So the only thing we had was like an IP grabber. So we sent him a couple of links. So we found out where he was in general, just in
Hmm.
Ghana. Um,
He wasn't using a VPN.
no, none of them were.
Oh,
Well,
interesting.
yeah. So they feel pretty safe because almost no one will get
Yeah.
after them. You know.
It's not like the government or law enforcement is going to do anything about it there.
Well, yeah, there is this task force called the EFFC, I believe, and that's the only task force in Nigeria that's doing something about that. It was uh, uh, the task force started under pressure of the G7, but in the end, the victims they make are all in the West. They aren't in Africa. So why would the police
Yeah.
put a lot of effort and money into catching people that, in a way, even bring some money to their own economy.
Yeah.
Because they get dollars and euros, and that's a staple, as stable as you can get it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I forgot your question. Sorry.
We'll keep going.
Okay.
So, were there anything in the process that really kind of surprised you about how the organizations are run or their technical
Yeah.
abilities?
Well, the biggest breakthrough we got was the whole picking network thing. So it seems like those groups they have the business divided. So you have the people that do the really intensive work. So for instance, having 24/7 contact with their victims for the romance scam, but also the whole business email compromise fraud. There are a lot of guys who do that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So they just start with finding good victims, scanning them. So in the case of romance scams, they ask a couple of questions, which are they all had the same story. They all were widows, and
Mm-hmm.
their wife was they lost their wife due to breast cancer. They all had one child, and they always asked if you have children, because that's a risk for them. Because if you have
Yeah.
children, they can ask questions about the relationship. So if you have children, and they will immediately say you have to keep our relationship a secret because it's for my own safety.
Yeah.
Uh, and they all asked what kind of house you had, if you have a mortgage, or if you rented a house, because that's also a good way to scan if you have income
Yeah.
and how much. Um, and after that, it'll just take a couple of weeks before they even started asking about money. The first couple of weeks are just there to make the connection as solid as possible. So that's really intensive, and they were 24/7 online. So
Wow.
it seemed like they work in groups. We are pretty sure they work in groups because they had one guy that was the voice.
Mm-hmm.
So my girlfriend pretended to be the fake woman with my face, and we called the guy once or twice, and then some other guy picked up, which is definitely hear a difference in in the voices. Um, yeah, and they were all off on Sunday. They didn't do anything on Sunday.
Oh, interesting.
That's a free day, I guess. So then you could maybe get one or two messages, but the rest of the time, so all the other days, they were just there asking you 24/7 what you were doing. If you were home already, when you got home, they would ask how the day was, just the normal relationship stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And some even wanted to have cyber sex. So we sent photos where we made photos of my butt, and we paint nipples on it, so we could at least send something to them. Yeah, that was intense. But and then the other guy, so they take a couple of weeks to establish a good connection, and
Mm-hmm.
then they want to have money. And the way they get money is they go online and they find a pickers network. And pickers are there to create the excuse and the front and to receive the money.
Mm-hmm.
In return, they keep a percentage, I think 30%. Um, so those networks are they're pretty believable. They have good fronts, so good websites that seem like real postal services or real diplomatic services. Um, they always have a great excuse for why they need money. Could be
Mm-hmm.
because they want you to invest in something. For instance, one of the guys said, "I have a lot of money back in America." He said he pretended to be an American soldier, um, but I can get there right now because I'm in Afghanistan doing a secret mission. Uh, um, could you contact the local business that's keeping my money so they can send it to you? And
Mm-hmm.
then, of course, you have to pay an amount to receive the full amount of money. Uh, uh, Administrative costs,
Yeah.
and they're kind of the same kind of scams, but the whole thing, you could they had a call service, call center for that whole thing, a good fake website, and we the first banking account we got was from, I believe, Turkey. So he said, yeah, sorry, if you want the money quick, we only can send it through a Dutch account because we were curious what would happen.
Mhm.
And then they just sent us a new banking account from a Dutch company, actually.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so we got like 5 or 6 banking accounts from that same picker network. And they eventually said, okay, it's taking too long. We'll send some guy to you to collect the money in cash. And then we got calls from Belgium and France, because there were a couple of people there that were really willing to go to the Netherlands, should drive like 10 or 12 hours to collect the money in cash.
That starts to get scary when they say, "Well, we'll come pick something up from you at your house."
Yeah,
Were they? Do you know if the people that were coming to get the money were quote unquote coming to get the money? Were they mules or were they actually part of the criminal organization?
I think one of them was part of the criminal organization. We actually found a couple of links to a wanted guy, a Nigerian wanted criminal, that just had a new banking account in Belgium, but he didn't want to go to pick it up.
Yeah.
He's the first guy they tried to send was, we tracked him down to a company in Belgium as well, but a company that had a lot of debt. So it seemed like they could just pressure him into doing whatever they wanted. And the second guy they sent, he was more cautious, and in the end, we didn't get any cooperation with the local police, and it was too dangerous to just arrest him ourselves.
Yeah.
Because he probably had a knife or something, because he didn't want to get robbed, of course. So we didn't go that far into meeting him. But in the end, this was the guy that we scammed ourselves for 3.5 months. So the guy that was not working for the Pickers network, that was just having contact with us and waiting for the money. He was waiting for his money for over 2 months, because every time he asked, "Did you send the money?" we had a new excuse, just like he had an excuse every time he wanted money. And we said, always said, "Yeah, you have to install the app. You know this." We even pretended to be at the bank, so I played someone working at the bank. We had the whole sound set up, so it sounded like we were in the local business. Really pressured him into downloading the app, and he downloaded it, but he didn't go far enough to get us to take pictures. So in the end, we just bluffed. We said we already knew everything about him, and he had one chance to tell us the truth, and he was exhausted. We played with him for such a long time that he just broke. He started crying and confessed.
Wow.
And it was a guy who was 27 years old, my age at that time also. He dropped out of school because of COVID in Africa. Schools were closed. Didn't have any way to make money, or easy way to make money. And some friends helped him set up this little side business, but it didn't work. None of the victims fell for it in the end. So we were his last hope, and we were fake.
So even though even though he was using a picker network, he really himself was not a criminal organization. I mean, he was utilizing it, but he was not part of a larger ring of
that's
scammers.
Right. Yeah. So this kind of crime as a service, even money laundering as a service thing, I think it's a new trend that I also see here in the Netherlands, because we have a lot of phishing networks here, and all the little things, little components, for instance, buying potential victims, leads, or using or renting out a phishing panel, or getting the money mules. Those are all different businesses that you can just find on Telegram channels. And he did the same thing. He just found people online that could, launder the money. But because we took such a long time, one of the Pickers networks actually banned him from his account because they didn't get any in return. So he was kind of lost.
You know, when you're dealing with, in this case, it was an individual, but if you're dealing with a criminal organization, what kind of precautions did you guys take to not be a target of the criminal organization?
I'm not easy to find, but I did get death threats. The police called me right after a famous Dutch journalist was killed by a criminal organization, that I was also getting threats. So the only thing I could do was not make it hard to be found.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the threats are now gone. But that's the only thing you can really do, or not make the things you want to make.
Yeah.
Because in the end, if someone wants to find me, they'll probably, I will be able to find me because I know how to do that.
Yeah.
But I just figured, okay, the people that want to pay to get me killed, they probably don't really want to get me killed because I'm not that big of a risk to them.
Yeah.
And the people that were just frustrated that I did something like this, they would either DDoS me or try to find me, but won't be able to find me. So yeah, but it's always a gamble, I guess.
Yeah, to me, I'm hearing more and more of that in the kind of the scam baiting community of a lot of threats against journalists and these people, along with doxing, along with swatting, where they
Yeah,
call in a fake hostage situation at your address, and
yeah.
the police come storming in, guns ablazing, which is never a good scenario for anybody.
Nope, nope. Well, yeah, the security at our house, our apartment is also okay. We, yeah, we at least can see them coming, but that's that's also when it's too late, of course. But
Yeah, yeah. Were there any surprises that came up through your research?
well, I think a couple of them. So we made 4 episodes. One about Indian call centers. So those are famous in the scam baiting community, of
Mm-hmm.
course. Um, um, I think what's surprising for me there was, so we routed, we got access to their systems, of 3 different companies, and he made over $15,000 each month per employee, per
Wow.
person. Yeah, so that they were making that much money was insane to me. And some of them were pretty smart. There was this little, this one company that actually got people to sign contracts. Uh, and the contract stated that they were uh, pretty happy with the service and that they were happy to pay the amount of money they paid. So it would be difficult to get the money back from the credit card company because they could just give them the signed, so legit signed contracts.
Here's the person. Here's the contract. They said they were happy with the service. How could it
Yeah,
possibly be fraudulent if we have
yeah,
proof that it was legitimate?
right. Yeah, and at the same time, they also had blank checks on their computers because they convinced old people to just scan in blank checks so they could add the numbers themselves.
Oh,
We even found traces of identity theft, making new loans, Bitcoin addresses. And one of the guys, he was always Googling the most expensive things, the most expensive car, literally, or the top 5 most expensive motorcycles, or and was watching Netflix, a lot of Hindi movies during his workday. Of course, the Netflix account was paid by a victim.
yeah.
Was of course someone else's name. Yeah, but those guys don't feel any pressure of their law enforcement, I guess, because they were not even hiding. They were really, yeah, hiding in plain sight. Yeah,
It's just big business as opposed to. I mean, I guess technically it's organized crime, but it's run as a business.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the other, yeah. Well, so we did one thing local about phishing networks here. Because at first thought they would probably be operated from Russia or somewhere else, but we only found guys in the Netherlands that were just doing that as a new, because we had a lockdown here during that time. Uh, in the Telegram channels, they were just telling each other, "Hey, the government says you have to stay at home and work from home. So I've got a new business opportunity for you. Just rent out our fishing panel." Uh, and it was insane how many people actually did that. That it rose gigantically. It was, yeah, it's still a big problem because it's way harder to catch a fishing guy than just a street corner
Yeah.
uh, guy. But those guys were the same types, and right now there's a big mix in, because in the end they get money either way, and it's all cash. So if it's from if it's from dealing or fishing, in the end, it's just a stack of cash.
Yeah.
They still need to launder that money. And now you see a little bit of a mix going on between the drug and the cocaine world and the cybercrime world here. And where there's cocaine, there's a lot more violence, and it's starting to mix as well in this case. So
yeah, that gets scary when the violence from the drug crime starts spilling into cyber crime.
Yeah, and that's the moment when I got the call, like you're don't leave your home right now.
So was it I want to take a little deeper talk about this. Was it the police had intel indicating that you were a target, or did you know that you were, like, someone had threatened you, so you knew that you were a target?
No, the police had intel because on one of the Telegram channels they just shared the channel also sold unregistered guns and bullets, and my photo came up a couple of times. Yeah, it wasn't a direct threat as like, okay, we're going to do it tomorrow or something like that, but they were just fantasizing about it. And that's pretty much enough for me to lay low for a little while. So it's pretty funny. I actually live in a part of the city which is not well, there are a lot of criminals here. It's just the reality. So once I got home, so this call happened, and then I got home. I was working somewhere else. So I was walking, trying to cross the street. So I was at the middle of the street, and then suddenly a car stopped right in front of me. The windows went down. There were 4 shady-looking guys in there. One looked me straight in the eye, and he said, "Keep catching those thieves, right?" Like, yeah, man. Found it. He was just a fan, but that could have ended way differently.
Oh, that's got to be get the adrenaline flowing.
Yeah. It did. Yeah, pretty happy ended that way. Yeah.
So let's change gears here. I know you have been involved in OSINT, and you and I, before we started recording, we're talking a little bit about Ukraine. So in the U.S., I don't think we get a whole lot of we might get reasonable coverage of military things going on in Ukraine, but my understanding is there's a tremendous amount of kind of cyber warfare going on. So can you tell us what's going on in Ukraine from that perspective?
Well, those are 2 different questions. I know something about the cyber war going on as well. But maybe we can go into the research part. So how we are covering it.
Yeah.
Over here. So you must be familiar with Bellingcat.
I am not.
Okay, Bellingcat is a news organization that's just based on open source intelligence. So they, for instance, the first big thing they uncovered was who's behind the Malaysian Airlines attack, MH17 in Ukraine. That's also a little bit what got me more turned out, because that was a plane that departed from the Netherlands. A couple of people I knew were on board.
Oh, wow.
And it was shut down. Yeah, we're such a small country that I think everyone knows someone that knows someone that was on the plane, or knows someone that was on the plane.
Wow.
You kind of use their method. So what they do is they use a lot of geolocation, and they just go into Telegram channels and Facebook groups, Vkontakte, the Russian Facebook, and just try to find images that people just post themselves, and then verify if those images are real, where they were shot, and when they were shot. So it's a lot about image verification. So that's a big part of the job, because the organization I work for, right now, I think it's the same as in America, where people scream fake news all the time. And if you make one mistake as a news organization, they will keep you reminding you for 10 years.
Yeah.
So they don't want to post anything that's not verified by us. So we go into the Telegram groups of, for instance, local towns, small towns, villages, and people there talk about their own houses that have been blown up, or people that were laying on the street, or dead soldiers, or anything. and we try to verify if those pictures are real. And we also go into military channels, see what's happening there, what people like to post. Of course, it's all pretty hard to verify. So yeah, and also there's a lot of propaganda as well, or there was at it's. I think at the start of the war there was a lot of fake news in there as well. But the Ukrainian side is pretty reliable in what they share, or at least that we verified. So, but right now the East Front it's well, they're doing a pretty good job at liberating their own country again, and that's partly because they didn't post anything about their military actions, which is for us a bad thing because we can't.
Yeah.
Everyone is eager of new images, new video, new footage, new news, but it's also a time where fake news can get injected because everyone's eager. So that's pretty hard. But because of the media coverage or the media blackout, you can call it, it was also harder for the Russians to locate where the movements of the Ukrainians was heading towards. So yeah, we do that, and also make news stories based on anything we can find out. So if we can uncover a spy, we'll try to do that. If we have a long investigation about war crimes, we'll try to buy satellite imagery to figure out if things have changed in a short amount of time, or if we can find vehicles on those images. So it's a big subject. There's a lot going on, but you can find out a lot without actually going to Ukraine. Of course, we also have people on the ground that can verify what we find out. But it's a way. It's a great new tool for journalists, because it's not only to discredit fake news or verify news, but also find new stories. It's almost unique right now to be able to do that. I couldn't think of a war where it was possible until this war.
I found it very interesting that some of the news coverage, at least here from the U.S., has really changed to, we've been able to talking about some of the verification methods rather than just saying, here's the news story of, something that happened in this village, but saying, we were able to confirm that yes, this building is in this town from old Google Maps. All sorts of companies are providing satellite imagery, and people on the ground. That it's one of these very interesting that so much has been, that there is a certain amount of distrust in just the picture by itself, but there's so many ways to verify.
It can tell a lot.
You might not be able to verify the story, but you can at least verify, yes, this building was standing on this date. It was not standing on this date. It really was that building. Here's the satellite imagery before and after. And it's not satellite imagery provided by, not all your sources are, this is the government. I'm going to, one particular government source saying, here's all of our evidence, but it's a whole bunch of disparate sources, which all kind of point to the same thing happening.
And everyone can check your work as well. Because what we do is we just put online, the coordinates and how we got there, and then people can just verify our news. So if you buy those images, you can see it for yourself. But sometimes it's as easy as just go onto Google Street View and see the scenery being the exact same, the little details. And we even use, for instance, shadow lengths to figure out at what time a video was shot. And that's such a good detail for normal investigations as well.
Now just so much more science involved in kind of reverse engineering what happened and when it happened.
Yeah, so it's not only metadata, but also all the visual clues you can think of, and then you can support that theory with evidence from people on the ground, like witnesses, just a normal journalism. But now it's a way stronger story than just some witnesses saying this happened. But those can be bought as well, of course.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the one of the weak eyewitnesses are sometimes the weakest and most unreliable data sources.
Yeah, yeah. So we can even cross-reference those things. Yeah, I think it's such a good opportunity for the whole journalistic community to start getting more OSINT specialists or gaining knowledge about it, because it's such a valuable thing.
I mean, it's. Do you see a future where uh, educational institutions that are teaching journalism will start teaching more OSINT techniques in addition to just journalism and ethics around journalism?
Yeah, yeah, it's already happening here.
Oh,
There,
interesting.
yeah, because you can also make complete new concepts, new journalistic concepts based on OSINT, or uh, find new stories based on just checking images. Because sometimes when the government says something and it doesn't work, and you check it, if that isn't true, if that isn't really what happened, you can now figure out that that's not true. It used to be that we just had to maybe discredit the source,
Mm-hmm.
or say, okay, we're not sure if they're lying or not, and now we can just go back to them and say, hey, this doesn't match with our investigation, explain yourself. So we can hold people accountable, not only governments but people in general.
And I guess it starts to make it easier to identify propaganda versus legitimate discussions of events.
Yeah, 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 because everyone can verify it.
Yeah, that's tremendous. Okay, so how in the world do you find all the Telegram groups and these private groups that are talking about these things, whether it's cyber criminals or communities in places far away?
Well, you have to get familiar with their terminology, and you can do that by just having luck and find one group, and then
Mm-hmm.
figuring out, okay, this is their vocabulary, this is what the slang is, uh, and then go from there. That's what I normally do, or infiltrate for us and just act like you're new and want to learn something.
Mm-hmm.
And people are eager to help you because they want to make money out of you. And
Yeah,
yeah,
I guess if you're getting a 30% cut of someone's business, that's
yeah. So
you're motivated to bring in more criminals into the gang.
right, yeah. So they're investing in you as a criminal at first, and as a researcher, or threat intelligence researcher, you can really use that in your advantage. Uh, I wouldn't suggest paying anyone,
Yeah.
but you can at least start a conversation and try to get some information from social engineering. I think that's the basic step. And in the Ukrainian thing, um, in Russia and Ukraine, Telegram is just one of the social media apps that's
Mm-hmm.
most commonly used. Uh, so there already are a lot of groups. So it's a matter of finding the right word, like the Ukrainian version of the name of a town,
Mm-hmm.
and then just dropping that into Telegram and trying to find groups that are open, and just get in there. Maybe someone links to another group, and then you get a little stuff further. I think we're in about 300 or 500 groups right now.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so we can just type in a date or an event, and they'll probably find something about it to verify. And sometimes it's fake, but that's also good, because then you at least know that there isn't a real footage.
Yeah, that's always good. So as we wrap up here, where can people find more about you and what you do?
So I have a website. I think we best link that in the description, because
Yep.
otherwise I have to spell it. Uh, I'm on LinkedIn as well, so I think that's a good place. I don't really use Twitter. I only use that to collect information, so wouldn't be any use. So I think through my website, you can always email me, of course. My email address at the website as well. And YouTube. Just Find My Phone, Rats and Slaves. Those are two of the documentaries that have been translated. Uh, so we'll probably link that as well.
Yep, we'll definitely make sure to link those as well. Anthony, thank you so much for coming on the Easy Prey podcast today.
Thank you for having me.